pleased to be with you to talk, even in this fashion, about the new Cold War that's impacting Eastern Asia, also, of course, the South Pacific region. It's a moment of great danger as the military buildup takes place, not only in Japan and the initial areas where the United States has military bases, the buildup in the Philippines, and then in Darwin, where the Australians and the United States are extending the runway so that aircraft can be positioned there, aircraft that will be able to carry nuclear weapons. This itself is a violation of the Treaty of Rarotonga, a treaty that calls for a nuclear free South Pacific. Great danger, this military buildup, because the United States continues, despite its failure to occasion a victory in Ukraine, its failure to move an agenda in Gaza. Despite all these failures, the United States continues to pursue a belligerent foreign policy, whether it's against Cuba or Venezuela, or indeed as far as in your neighborhood in the South Pacific and East Asia, continues to try and pressure China into some form of surrender, which is just not happening. What is the United States trying to get China to stop doing? What it really wants the Chinese to do is to stop developing. It wants to prevent the Chinese from developing their productive forces. It wants to prevent the Chinese from having a lead in terms of technology when it comes to high speed rail communications technology, including 5, 6G technology. It wants to prevent it from developing extraordinarily new forms of chips and so on that are going to make not only communications but data management so much more easy for human commerce, human relations, and so on. The fact that you can buy a Huawei phone is a direct challenge to Apple, whose phones are much more expensive. The United States wants to roll back Chinese development. That's what's at stake. It's not that they are trying to protect the world from a belligerent China. The United States and its allies spend 76% of the world's military budget. China, about 10%. China is a defensive power, not trying to go and conquer territories, not trying to invade Australia, for goodness sake. What it is doing is trading with everybody. Australia's largest trading partner is China. That's a reality. Your foreign policy should start with that reality. New Zealand's largest trading partner is China. Philippines' largest trading partner is China. The largest trading partner for all these countries is China. Foreign policy should start with this realistic assessment, not begin with orders from Washington, D.C., which is exactly what seems to be the case. Washington has an existential problem with the economic rise of China. Australia doesn't have an existential problem. Indeed, Australia's trade relations have improved as a consequence of China's development in the last couple of decades. Washington has a problem that Chinese high tech development threatens Silicon Valley. This is not a problem faced by New Zealand or Australia or the Philippines. They don't have tech companies, high tech companies that are going to be negatively impacted by Chinese developments. In fact, if the Chinese are able to move to build, manufacture at scale the 600 kilometer an hour high speed rail, imagine what this would do in the vast open spaces of Australia. You could have trains going right across the country, connecting different parts of the country that might feel isolated. 600 kilometers an hour, the fastest train in the United States goes at about 100 kilometers an hour, and most of the time only 80 kilometers an hour. They want to roll back development that's going to help humanity. They are pushing a Cold War, which is the tendency of that to become a hot war very much there. United States tried to do this with Russia, boxing Russia in by expanding NATO. It eventually ended in conflict. We don't need this in East Asia. We don't need this in Asia. In fact, we don't even need this anywhere in the world. But this is the tendency of the US: more war, more confrontation, less collaboration. less dealing in the basic, architecture of the UN Charter. You got to get your government to change its focus. Don't take orders from Washington, D.C. Take orders from the Australian people. Figure out how to live in your own neighborhood. You'll find then a peaceful solution to disputes. No need for nuclear weapons in Darwin. Take care of yourselves.